Good afternoon, everyone. It is Adam Haroon from Branding MD here once again. I hope you're all having a great Thursday. We're getting towards the end of the week, which is exciting. And today is day 6 of our June marketing jumpstart. And today we are going to be covering how you can maximize revenue per patient with an intelligent service menu. So all about helping you make the most revenue per patient while helping them get the best outcomes. So really a really robust topic and something that I think many spas miss the mark on, many aesthetic providers miss the mark. So I'm really excited to jump right into this. So what we're going to cover today is what makes an intelligent services menu. What actually has to go into that from, a more conceptual standpoint? What do we need to consider? So I really want to start with a nice overview of the mechanics of what goes into a really strong services menu. Really want to share some very innovative pricing models with you and some service menu models that we've really seen work in this industry, drawing inspiration from some other industries, again, really to make that most revenue possible per patient and really make sure that, we're not leaving any possible business opportunities on the table. And again, it's all in the interest of getting our patient the best outcomes. So really excited to share that with you. Then I want to touch on, the whole idea of memberships and subscriptions and what I think of them and what we've seen work in our experience. So you can draw some inspiration from that. And then I just want to talk a little bit and give you some inspiration on how you can innovatively reach some new market segments and what that looks like in some very unique examples. So lots to cover, but I'm very excited. So let's dive right in. So, first things first, like I said, we really want to understand what goes into planning our services menu. What information do we need? What mechanics do we need to be cognizant of? So, to start with, the most fundamental thing that I think, unfortunately, a lot of practices miss the mark with is you really need to get comfortable knowing your numbers. So, we really want to make sure we know everything possible, each of the services we offer, so that we can determine what makes sense as far as pricing goes and what makes sense as far as how we structure our services, right? So I would encourage you with your team and with your practice manager to really look at your services, all of your procedures and treatments. What are your consumables? What do they cost? Are you paying a commission to any of your team members, right? What is your overhead? What is the amount of time it takes a service provider to perform that treatment? And then based on that, how long does it take them, right? So we can determine our actual cost to provide the service and get to a total cost, right? From there, we can really look at, right, what our pricing is going to be, what it's going to be set at, and what our net is after we offer the service, and then really looking at our profit margins, right? So having a very clear idea of how profitable each of your services is, not only is that fundamental in creating your services menu, but it's also going to help you understand when you're marketing, what do you really want to focus on, right? Do you want to focus on some of a loss leader type service, or do you really want to focus on what's most profitable? Or is there some combination of both, right? But we can't determine any of that unless you have a really clear picture of your numbers. So this is a really good place to start, is just getting very comfortable with your numbers, breaking down each procedure and treatment you offer to figure out what your net revenue is on that and what your profit margin is. So really fundamental there. So I would encourage you first and foremost to get to know your numbers. From there, we really want to look at who are your patient profiles and what are the concerns that they're coming into your practice with, right? Is it anti-aging? Is it acne scars? Is it skin tightening? Is it, really augmentation of certain facial features? Whatever these different solutions we want to provide are based on the indication or the concern that patient has, we want to provide really a whole suite of different solutions. That way we can present clientele with different options based on their budget, based on what technology you carry in the practice, so they can really compare and contrast and understand the different modalities and the different facets that really go into creating a treatment plan, right? So what you'll see here, we've created for an anti-aging package different options from injectables to lasers to different types of different therapy we could offer them. So all of that is designed in the vein of really helping patients understand their options based on what their concerns are, right? And then from there, we can really base our skincare treatment options on that as well. So very fundamental and really something you want to take a look at. So from there, we want to look at, now that we know our numbers, now that we know what our procedures and treatments are, how do we really create pricing and service models that are going to work effectively for our practice, right? So to start, one model I really want to talk to you about is called contextual pricing. And this is actually something that's adopted from the world of fashion initially, but you now see it in many different industries. So as an example, I'm going to use Chanel, right? If you walk into a Chanel boutique, you may see a ten or $15,000 handbag on offer, or perhaps an evening gown at a similar price point. And yes, there will of course be a subset of clientele who are willing to invest that in their pieces. But for many people who walk into a Chanel boutique, that's not quite within reach at the moment. So they might be looking for something more affordable. And all of a sudden, they see a $400 keychain on offer, right? Now, on its own, $400 for a keychain seems, quite outrageous, right? You can get keychains, I mean, at the dollar store, right? But when you compare that to the context of a $15,000 handbag or evening gown, that $400 keychain all of a sudden seems incredibly affordable, right? So this is pricing in terms of context, right? It goes back to that old analogy. How do you sell a $10,000 watch? You put it next to a $50,000 watch, right? And so I want to give you an example of what this looks like once again in your aesthetic practice, right? So what we like to do with our clientele is we really like to develop a very high ticket item that's sort of a kind of like a liquid facelift or combine several modalities. And we like to make that the highest price point offering you have in your practice, right? This is really your flagship procedure, if you will. And again, there will be a subset of your clientele, whether they are buying patio furniture or whether they are buying aesthetic procedures, they're going to say, I would be in whatever your best is, I want that. Give me the best solution you have. So not only does this approach give you something to offer these people, but when you compare that to all of a sudden whatever it is you charge, and these are arbitrary prices here, whatever you charge for a neuromodulator or neurotoxin, or whatever you charge for a syringe of dermal filler, all of a sudden that becomes so much more affordable, right? And again, going back to our previous discussions on previous webinars, we want to be selling outcomes. We don't ever want to be selling a particular, unit or syringe or vial or any of that. But what we do want to offer is really an outcome-based high ticket offering that makes all of your other offerings like affordable by comparison, even if you do choose to price by the syringe or by the unit of a neurotoxin. So this is called contextual pricing, and it's about offering a high ticket procedure that makes all of your others look so much more affordable. So that's contextual pricing. Next up, we have a model I want to talk to you about called the Ascension model. And I know you probably aren't sure why you're seeing Disney stuff on your screen right now, but let me walk you through it. The Ascension model is all about starting someone at an approachable price point for their needs and their budget. And once they get results and see what you can do for them, you then begin to suggest a number of additional ancillary services, each at an increasing price point, right? So, as an example, again, looking at Disney, right? We have, a DVD, which is, maybe $20 or less, right? And those of you on the webinar who have children, right, your kids love Disney, so they love the DVDs. They want to have, a themed birthday party all of a sudden, right? With the plates and the napkins and the cups and the every accessory you can think of for a child's birthday party. And so all of a sudden, you're not just buying that, $20 DVD. You're now spending, possibly $50 to $100 on, all the trappings of a fun birthday party in a Disney theme, right? So now you've spent more than your initial, right, $20 price point. And then all of a sudden, your son or daughter learns that there is a Disney cruise they can take, right? And they can spend a week at sea with all their favorite Disney characters, right? Doesn't that sound like fun? To some people, yes, some people no, right? But anyways, looking at pricing for a Disney cruise, that's not cheap, right? You could easily be spending upwards of $5,000 or $10,000 for your whole family to go on this vacation for a week, right? And so all of a sudden you've gone from a $20 DVD to, a $5,000, $10,000 vacation for your family, right? And this is the Ascension model at play. And like many other things they do, Disney has truly mastered this model, right? You start someone off at an approachable price point. They come to love your brand and what you have to offer. And then you begin to increasingly offer other solutions of value at increasing price points, right? So just to give you an example of what that looks like, right? Maybe someone comes in for a chemical peel and then they purchase a skincare bundle. You then get them started with injectables, maybe some laser packages, and right, ideally a full-on liquid facelift once they're ready and once they need it. Now, those of you who are in surgical practices, right, where you're offering invasive procedures, your surgical procedures can really work beautifully. This whole model works beautifully, really, in a surgical practice, but they can be at the bottom of your Ascension model. That said, it's not to say that someone can't come in at that high ticket offering and based on those results, then they want everything else, right? But this is all about not just haphazardly trying to cross sell and upsell, but really having a very structured way based on your treatment profiles and your patient profiles, like we talked about a few slides ago, that you can really leverage a model where you are continually moving patients, down the ladder, if you will, or up the ladder if they start at a high price ticket, to really take advantage of all the products, all the procedures, all the treatments your aesthetic practice has to offer them so they can ultimately get that very best outcome. That's what this is all about. Great. So, keeping that in mind, another great way to really retain patients and keep them loyal, in addition to really maximizing revenue, is really through memberships and subscriptions. And I know sometimes people are a little hesitant to kind of check out memberships and subscriptions. They think it might not work for their practice. I always love if to some extent every practice can implement these. And let me share why with you. So, first of all, it gives them an alternative financing option, right? Maybe someone doesn't want to use credit to pay for their procedure. Maybe someone doesn't want to, engage patient financing, right, through the solutions you offer in practice. But memberships can be a way, as can subscriptions, and we'll explain the difference in a moment, to really make financing a much more accessible option. And it's really an alternative, right, financing option when you look at subscriptions and memberships. The other thing is we don't ever want patients to be one and done, right? We don't want them to come in, get results, and we never see them again, right? Right. We don't want that toxin patient just one time. We want them, every 3 to 4 months, right? We don't just want that, ultrasound resurfacing package once a year. We want them to come back every year, right? So memberships and subscriptions are great for repeat services because it ensures that patient is going to come back to you and not try and veer elsewhere. By the way, you should be offering your membership and subscription options to every single patient in your practice, unless there's a very specific reason you wouldn't. But for most practices, you should be offering some kind of membership and subscription to every patient. Many of them will say yes. And again, it improves your retention because when they're on a membership, they're not going to try to go elsewhere, right? They're sticking with your practice. So it's a really great way to do that as well. And in today's really marketplace, memberships are common, right? Gym memberships, Netflix memberships, right? There's a lot of these pre-made meal services you can subscribe to, right? All these kind of different, product and gift box services you can subscribe to. So we really have become as consumers very inclined to pay for things in the sense of memberships, right? I've seen brow bars offer memberships. I have seen all kinds of different businesses offer memberships, right? I saw actually a dessert place in Toronto, a funnel cake restaurant offer a membership, right? If a funnel cake restaurant can offer a membership, you can as well. And of course, this means your patients are going to get much better outcomes. They're going to be much more satisfied with their results. And that ultimately means that they are going to be happier and be more satisfied and review you well, and everyone wins, right? So subscriptions and memberships can be very, very viable when implemented correctly. And I'm going to show you 3 models that we've seen work really, really well for physicians and medical spas when they implement memberships. And we've used many different iterations. These are just kind of 3 broad categories to get you thinking about this and to get you started. So the first is what I call the savings bank model. And this is where a patient pays a set amount, right? It could be $100, $200, or $500, right? Or more, depending on what you offer and, how affluent, your patients are. But they basically are kind of prepaying for their services every month. And because they're a member, they get, for example, 10% off if you spend $100 a month, 15 if you spend 200, and 20 if you spend 500, right? And that amount they spend every month just, again, goes into their savings bank. And that way, when they come in and they're ready for their procedures, they don't have to worry about it because they've already, invested with your practice. And because they've done that, they get a much more attractive price point, right? With this model, you may want to include a free skincare bundle if they sign on at a certain level. It works really well for that. If you're a really busy practice, this means they can get priority scheduling. There's a lot of really cool ways to work with this, but it's a very very nice model when you offer a diverse range of products and procedures, or your patients' needs are diverse, and offering them a set, number of services per month doesn't necessarily suit them. So that's one model. The next model is what I call the suite of services, or two-tier models, right? So you may offer a membership between $79 and $100 a month as your first tier, and $150 and $250 as your second tier. And every month they get a set number of services. For example, a free chemical peel every month, or every few months. They get, a hydrofacial every month if that's something you offer. Maybe they get then a certain discount on other, or savings on all your other procedures and services. And they also, in addition to that, might get, a locked in price for syringes of filler or neurotoxin, right? So this is probably the most popular model and the one you're the most used to seeing. And again, the best way to structure this is, again, to know your numbers so you can really accordingly adjust your offerings in each tier to make sure this still makes sense for your practice from a bottom line standpoint. So that's another model, right? Two tiers, different price points, different set services in each, and each might offer you then, in addition to those set services, a certain number of, a savings percentage on toxin and filler each month, right? So that's another model. The third model is prepayment, right? And that is really where they're paying, for a set number of services upfront at the beginning of the year to use at their leisure. But because they prepay, there is a lot of really generous discounting there. And again, I don't like that word discounting. We, again, always want to say savings and incentives. So that's another model that works really well. Now, innovative approaches for new market segments, right? If you have different kind of patients in your practice, for example, maybe women of a certain age looking to preserve their appearance, and then you have millennials who are looking to enhance their facial features and, stop aging before it starts, it goes without saying the way you're going to communicate with those two patient bases is very, very different, right? So how we really want to do that is really look at the motivations of each of your patient profiles. Look at what, media they consume. How do we actually reach out to these different bases? And based on that, right, like I say, our offerings might be a little bit different. And probably the most innovative example I want to share with you as a source of inspiration today is really looking at how do we do this, and get outside the box, right? So this is an example of a practice in Switzerland we had the pleasure of visiting when our team was there last fall. And this is Clinic Natignon. So they're a really big practice in Switzerland with several locations. But what they have in the department store, the main department store in Zurich, in Lausanne, my mistake, in Lausanne. What they have is they call this My Beauty Doctor. And how this works is this is a very, almost like a micro practice, and it's inside the makeup and beauty section of this department store, which you would compare to a Nordstrom or a Bloomingdale's. And it only offers, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, IPL and injectables. That's all it offers, right? So very, very focused services menu, okay? And what's really cool about that is it's street level. It's for people who may never walk into an aesthetic clinic, right off the bat, but it introduces them to this world of medical aesthetics in an environment that's approachable to them. It's street level, right? It looks very, very chic and modern. And then when they want the full suite of services on offer, they can really go to the full, clinic and get the full range there. But this lets them access a younger market in a very approachable way. So it's a really cool example. So wanted to share that with you. So between accessing new markets, really leveraging some very innovative pricing models, and really also looking at how your services are structured so that they're profitable, right? Knowing your numbers, knowing what kind of packages we can create for people based on their concern, we can really, really do things in an intelligent way so we're maximizing our revenue per patient. So I hope you got some gems of wisdom from this webinar. I want to invite you, as always, to join us on tomorrow's webinar, which is going to be Think Beyond the Selfie. What is working now on Instagram? I'm sure a lot of you have questions about Instagram, so I would definitely encourage you to be live on this webinar if you can. And that's going to be, again, at our same time and same place. That's going to be at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern. So feel free to check that out. So thank you so much for your time today, everyone. Again, there's my information. If you want to get in touch with me, any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday, and really looking forward to seeing you on tomorrow's webinar. Thanks so much, guys. Take care for now.